Hello, girlfriends, and welcome to another episode of Tracy Gold Show. Do you struggle to love the body that you have? Are you always looking at other women and thinking that if you had her body, you would love it more? Or even thinking of the younger you and think if only you had the body you used to have, you would love her more. Well, I hear you, and today we are going to have this tough conversation, but inspiring conversation on how to love the body you have. And in the room we have Joanna from Copper and Rise. Yay, she is already here. Just a and she's an executive presence coach. She's also a body positivity activist, and she's an amazing woman. Hey,
Hi,
Joanna, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you, darling? It's
It's
so good to see you, fellow redhead.
I know it's so wonderful to have you here again. Last time, Joanna, we were talking about Zoom tips, and we ended up having a whole conversation around body positivity. And I was like,
Yeah, we did.
wait a minute, we need to have this again. We need to
I
have
know.
you back here.
I know. We were like, you know what? Let's table this for a moment because this is a whole episode.
Absolutely. And what started the conversation, Joanna, was that I had seen on your website that you called yourself fat. And I was
Yes.
horrified. I was like,
Yeah.
how can you say that about yourself? And then I was like, but wait a minute. Why is she saying that about herself and saying it with such pride? So tell us that story.
Well, listen, I have been I'll just say dealing with body image issues. I think that broad stroke can apply to many of us watching. I've been
Yes.
dealing with body image issues ever since I was a kid. I was a very early bloomer in school, the first to have boobs, the tallest in the class, all through grade school. And people often commented on my body, whether it was my height, the color of my hair, my shape, etc. And it has only been until recently, I would say the past maybe 2, 3, or 4 years, where I've actually felt okay with exactly who I am in
Mm,
this exact body. And I
mm.
attribute it to getting more involved in the plus size community on Instagram, being friends with some plus size models. But also, I think maybe we get older and wiser and just start accepting a little bit more, which is
Yes.
something that we can talk about.
Yes. But I think that's very key, though. What you're saying is that you're involved in communities who are making that decision to love their bodies. You're
Yes,
feeling inspired by them. You're
very.
having those conversations. And now it isn't this thing that either people say to you because they feel they have the right to, or they don't want to talk about it at all. Because I think, you know what I find, Joanna? Is that in the shadows is where the shame happens,
Oh, of course.
right? But
Yes,
when we start talking about things and we have these conversations, we can go, oh, yeah, so you struggle with that too,
of
you know?
course. Of course. Listen, I come from a family of origin where my grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family, and I was very, very close with my grandmother. I'm actually named after her. Her name was Joanna. She was a
Mm,
woman who started her diet every Monday. Every
mm.
Monday. So she would go off the rails every weekend, and then diet starts on Monday. And even as she got older, she passed away when she was 97 years old. And so she
Wow.
she lived an incredible life. But I'll say even as she got older and more feeble and physically things were more physically taxing, she started to lose a lot of weight because she was getting sick, and she
Mm,
was so thrilled. She was so thrilled that she was losing weight, even though it was because she was unhealthy. So this is the family of origin that
wow. I
I
get
come
that.
from, right?
Mm,
Where there was a lot of conversation about the size of my thighs, about my arms, my height, etc. So yeah, it's been a long journey. And to your point, a huge part of that journey has been surrounding myself with people who speak the language, who
mm,
speak the body positivity real talk. And that real talk includes, hey, I struggle with this too.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
none of my friends are my size. I was never able to share clothes with friends, right? So, and yes, a lot of my friends would say, oh, I gained a few pounds. Oh, I can't fit into my bathing suit. Yeah, but they're a size 4. It's different. It is. It just is different. I realize that lots of people
Yeah.
struggle with body positivity, and we can go into this. A lot of people struggle with body positivity, but there is a unique issue that those in larger plus size bodies have dealt with for centuries, which is
Yes.
the oppression and societal shame that have been put upon us. So it is different for people like me and those who are fatter than me.
Yeah. Joanna, that's something that I was very appreciative of what you pointed out to me, even in the last interview. I mean, we all struggle, and I'm petite, I'm small, but still, just the other day, I mean, I was going through, like, had a muscle spasm and it made my stomach stand. I tell you, I looked like I was pregnant. I really did. I felt like I was pregnant, but I didn't have the glow and the joy. Like,
Yeah.
not that I'd be joyful at this stage of my life, but
Right.
anyway, my point is that, and I was struggling with that. I was like, man, I just don't feel myself, and I don't feel like I can do what the things I would normally be able to do. But what you pointed out to me is that, yes, so while I may be struggling with this, it isn't a societal pressure. It isn't you are unacceptable now because your stomach is sticking out.
Yeah.
It's a bigger, and I think that is the thing that we need to understand, is that many plus size people, especially women, have been made to feel like they are less than, that they're not even allowed to walk the earth, that they're almost not
Yeah.
even allowed to exist.
Yeah.
That it's this big shame thing that either we feel like we get to go and tell them that they need to lose weight, or we just avoid the topic altogether.
Yes. And listen, I am not here to negate anyone's experience. I'm
Yes.
also not here to negate someone's struggles. As a psychologist, I want everyone to feel whole and purposeful and loved exactly the way they are.
Yes.
And to your point, you would be shocked, Tracy, the amount of vitriol comes out, especially on social media, because people feel like they are anonymous somehow
Yes.
on social media. You would be shocked at the amount of hatred
Yes.
that is aimed at fat people, especially women.
Yes.
The comments are not comments that you would get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a real shame. It is a societal issue that we have to deal with and we have to come to terms with. We're getting there slowly but surely. Things have definitely gotten better in the past few years, I will say.
Mm. Okay, so now I need to ask the question, because I hear this so many times when I engage in conversations around this. And I think it was very interesting that you pointed out that your grandmother was I mean, she was dying, and yet
Yes.
her losing weight made her happy, even though it was
Yes.
to the detriment of her health.
Yes.
So many people have this belief that, well, if we make it okay for people to be fat, then it means that they can stay unhealthy. So what's
I love
your
that. Give it to me. I love that.
I am bringing it all out onto the
Yeah, I
table,
love it.
Joanna, because I think we have to have these conversations.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, there was an intervention on me by a friend last year, and his thought was, I just don't want you to be unhealthy. I had gained a lot of weight during the pandemic, and hey Janelle, what's up?
Yeah.
I just don't want you to be unhealthy. And while I understand that there's a lot, number one, I am not a doctor. Okay.
Yes.
I am also not super schooled in the world of medicine.
Yes.
I do know that there are lots of studies out there that do show that those living in larger bodies are at risk for a myriad of lots of things.
Yes.
And I want to say that number one, what is health? What is healthy and what is unhealthy? Because I describe and define health as physical health and mental health as well. And so if you're like my grandmother or so many people I know who constantly hate their bodies, constantly are stepping on the scale and getting upset that they gained a half a pound, whatever, that doesn't seem very healthy to me. That doesn't seem like you're walking around a joyful, knowing that you're a beautiful person.
Yes.
So that's number one. How do you define health? Number two is that there's a lot of bias, a lot of prejudice against fat people in the medical community as well. Scientists are not immune to bias. And so I wonder, right? Like scientists and doctors are people too who get affected by bias and prejudice as well. Yes. So I wonder how much of these studies and what people talk about as fact is actually based in bias.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's incredible. And I'm sure we'll talk about this, but my group with Plus Amplified, it's my passion project that I co-founded with 3 other friends of mine, one of whom is on here. Hi, Janelle. I mean, our last panel discussion was all about being a fat parent, fertility and parenthood as a fat person. And the stories that we heard about women who are fat who were rejected from gynecologists when they were pregnant is unbelievable. Completely like, we cannot treat you because you are fat. So there's a lot of, and meanwhile, one of our panelists was over 300 pounds and she had a very healthy baby. Her pregnancy was fantastic and everything went so well. So it's just, there's a lot of bias out there that we have to break down and look at and tease out what is fact and what is bias.
Yeah. Joanna, what I find interesting is that I have this belief that we need to put other people down because it's something that's happening within us. That when we're putting somebody else down, it's actually got more to do with who we are and how we see ourselves than it has to do with the other person. So this is the thought process that's happening in my head at the moment. So many of us really, really, really struggle with our own body image, regardless of size, regardless of age. And I think as we get older, some of us become more confident and some of us don't. For some of us, it's harder, especially as we go into menopause and we start experiencing changes that we're not used to seeing and things that are out of our control also in a lot of cases. Like sometimes you can exercise yourself to oblivion and eat all the right foods and still put on weight because your hormones are out of whack because you're going through menopause. So I feel like it begs the question, is it really a reflection of how people feel about fat people, or is it more a reflection of how we feel about ourselves? And that because I'm talking in broad terms, right?
Yes, of course.
If I as a woman feel the need to put you down because of your size, what is that saying about me? Is it more saying that I don't allow that as inside of myself? So it's easier for me to point out what I deem a weakness that I don't accept in myself and make it about you. And that is much more comfortable than if I have to actually deal with my own stuff. And so my question would be, should we not be looking at how we see ourselves and how we see our own body image when we find ourselves critical about somebody else's?
I swear to God, anyone watching this right now should just send you money for the therapy session that you just had for 30 seconds. Because projection is a real thing. Projection is a real thing where if we don't like something about ourselves, we project it onto other people so we don't have to hold it. And that's
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about. And I'll tell you a personal story that, frankly, I don't think I've ever told, ever. But
Wow.
about 10, 11 years ago, I myself went through a weight loss journey. I lost 62 pounds in a year, and I was very, very proud of myself. But I was also, obviously, if I felt like I needed to lose 62 pounds, there was something that I was not accepting about myself. Fine. I will never forget, and I feel so ashamed of this, that one night I was at a bar down in the West Village, and I had been drinking a little bit, and the bartender was a comedian. It was like there was stand-up going on, and the bartender was a comedian, and she made a joke about what I was wearing. And it was a joke for sure, but I had been drinking and I took it really personally. And I responded to her by saying, "You fat F-U-C-K." And it's because I was in the middle of going through a weight loss journey for myself, and I was feeling really fat, and that was bad. Fat equaled bad at that time. And so, yeah, I threw it out at her. I said, "You are a fat fuck." So
Yeah.
it has happened to me. It happens to everyone. If you're listening to that bartender, I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm very ashamed of it now, for sure. But it happens. It absolutely happens that we project. Absolutely.
And what that's saying is that because of how you were feeling vulnerable inside of yourself, and you were going through all these internal things. And
Yep.
so it's easier to lash out at somebody else.
Of course.
I think sometimes, Joanna, it's even more subtle than that. I think for those of us who are very disciplined and very strict on ourselves, like we don't eat certain foods, we never allow, have to make sure to work out. And those things in isolation are absolutely fine. But I do think when it becomes something that we pride ourselves in, and then we cannot handle any form of what we determine weakness in somebody else, still, I think that that's a red flag. Like, why do we need to? Because surely it is our choice, right? Just like it's somebody's choice to eat fatty foods, just like it's somebody's choice. I mean, you have skinny people who eat badly.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a plant-based, like I'm vegan. And if I were to go around judging everybody who ate meat and dairy, I would be poo-pooed, and people
Right,
would
of
come on
course.
hard on me, right? But it's my personal choice, and I accept that it's the choice of somebody else. However, when it comes to this, it's like people feel justified in that, and I'm having a hard time understanding that.
I also wonder, besides the projection of something that you hate within yourself and putting that on someone else, I also wonder if there's a small tinge or a large tinge of jealousy. Because if I think about how hard I worked to lose 62 pounds in a year, and if I think about lots of my other friends, even friends who have eating disorders, right? And who are just in hell, in a cage of an eating disorder. And they see someone else who's living their life to the fullest, who happens to be fat. I wonder if there's a little bit of jealousy involved in that. Like, how dare you have a full life? How dare you be fat when I'm over here suffering?
Well, because they're not allowing that in their own lives.
Right.
You see? So it's easier, it comes back to the projection thing. It's easier, instead of dealing with our own issues and saying, hey, what is it in us that we need to look at? It's easier to make you wrong.
Yep.
Like, Joanna, I see that. So my husband and I chose not to have children. And, before I turned 40, there was a gamut of people who felt that it was absolutely not only their right, but their duty to tell me that I must have children.
Yeah, that's
But
happened to me
as a
as well.
woman, that I, as a woman, am never going to be satisfied. They didn't feel the need to tell my husband, but they felt the need to tell me.
Yeah.
And what was quite interesting for me was that eventually, I mean, I would stand in line for food at an event, and somebody would say, at a, it was a, serve yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this one, we get to talking, and she says, oh, so do you have children? I say, no, and I've chosen not to. And, oh, but you must.
Yes. Oh, that's
I'm
happened
like,
to me.
all the time. But you
Yep.
know what was interesting, Joanna, was that I finally got to the point where I decided, you know what? I don't have to put up with that anymore.
No.
I actually don't have to. And I'm not taking it from anybody because it is my decision. And do you know that the comments stopped?
Good for you.
So I think it's interesting. Like, I wonder how much of this engagement, how much of it is, we allow people to speak to us in a certain way, and how much is it of also, I think it's probably and in both, people feeling that they have the right to say these kind of things. And I think it's beautiful that you've come to a place of loving yourself. Because Joanna, I don't see you as the kind of person of accepting that kind of battery from people.
Yeah, but I mean, at almost 40 years old, I'm now at that place. But even just last year, I had a friend sit me down and tell me that I was unhealthy. So I have, and that conversation went on for about an hour, and we were both crying our eyes out. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Yes, number one, I do think people feel like they have the right to comment on your life choices. They feel like they have the right to do that because they think they're good people and that they're helping you. What is missing from this equation is some perspective and self-awareness as to what they're saying and how they're saying it. So people just get very caught up, I think, in their agenda.
Yeah.
And they can't step outside themselves and see that maybe this isn't the right thing to say, maybe it's not the right time, etc., etc. So yeah, I do. This has happened to me with the no kids thing as well. There was an intervention 2 Thanksgivings ago by my aunt who told me that I would regret not having children. P.S. I'm single.
That's crazy, Joanna.
And she said, well, I'm just going to keep asking you. I'm going to keep asking you if you want kids. And my response was, well, you can keep asking me as long as you're okay with my answer always being the same. Yeah. But anyway, that's a different show.
But you see, but once again, and this is what I'm coming to.
But it's like they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy to me. They think they're doing us a favor or opening our eyes to something that maybe we didn't know. You know what? I know I'm fat. I know I'm fat, and I am eventually, over time, I've become okay with it. You don't have to uncover some sort of rose-colored glasses or something that I'm living within for me to know that I've gained weight during the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah. It's this weird thing of like, well, I'm just making you aware, as if you're not aware. I'm like, just walk down the street.
I mean, like,
and I'm
do you
sure
know
that you're
me
aware,
at all? Do you think I'm like, maybe there are people who walk around in a cloud and aren't aware that they've gained 30 pounds, but like, do you know me? Yeah. No, these are the things that other people they rationalize this poor behavior in the I have good intentions, they're not aware, I need to tell them about the science thing. They rationalize this poor behavior in it.
You see, I'm going to come back to the child example, the choosing not to have children. And I think that in my mind, once again, the women that felt the need, or people even, felt the need to tell me that I was wrong and that I was making the wrong decision, it was more about themselves never giving themselves permission to actually think maybe they had a choice.
They're probably miserable with 3 kids under the age of 10.
Listen, and some people love having children, and I think it's wonderful. I have no problem with people having children. The thing that I'm trying to say, Joanna, is that I really feel like if we are ever going to come to a place of accepting one another
Yeah.
and being a safe space for us to live in one another, I mean, live with each other. I mean, I feel
Yep.
like COVID has uncovered a whole lot of the isms, right? And we're in this process of really, really understanding it and understanding how we think about people and how we treat people. But I do believe that it comes down to also how are we treating ourselves and
Selves. I
how do
agree.
we think of ourselves? Because if I am solid, if I am grounded in who I am, then I don't need to criticize you.
Of
I don't
course.
need to make you wrong to make me feel better.
Yes, if you're
And
secure enough in yourself and your decisions, there's no reason to comment on other people's decisions. You know, the commenting is almost like needing external validation
yes,
for the
yes,
decisions that you've made. Well, guess what? You don't, hopefully we will live in a world eventually where everyone is okay with the internal validation. I know that I'm doing okay.
mm,
I know that the decision for me to not have children is the right decision for me.
yes,
I'm secure in that.
yes,
So I can commiserate with you and other friends on that. But the decision for other people to have children is not necessarily something that I'm going to negatively comment on,
yes,
right?
exactly. Because
I
you
say,
feel
you do
confident.
you,
Yes.
you do you. That sounds terrible, but you do you.
That sounds terrible.
I
But
mean,
for
that sounds
some
terrible for
people,
me, but you do
yeah.
you.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and so this is what I really would love people to take away from this conversation, Joanna, is that when we find ourselves needing to really comment, like negatively comment on people, to check ourselves and see what's happening. If
Totally.
you are, as many women are, struggling with body image, speak to friends, open those conversations so that we can realize that we're not alone. I mean, I know you're a personal stylist, I'm a personal stylist. So many women I've come across, and this is across the board of sizes
Across
and
the board. It
shapes
doesn't matter
and
what size you are.
ages.
Yeah.
There are body issues, and in fact, sometimes the models have more body issues than I have ever come across in people who
Yes.
are not models.
Of
So,
course.
for us to get support around that, and then to be kind with one another and to kind with ourselves, right?
Yes, of course. Of course. And I'll just bubble this up to more of a systems view because what we're talking about is interpersonal, right? And
Yes.
I completely agree with you. We need to be kind to ourselves and accept ourselves for exactly who we are, as well as accept others. And then on a systems view, society needs to stop. We
Mm,
need to stop being hateful towards fat people.
yeah.
And I think that will only come, to your point, by not hating ourselves for being fat and not hating other people. And then that will proliferate,
Yes.
right? But our society, especially the medical community and the fashion community, has perpetuated and augmented this hatred
Mm,
for a long
mm,
time. And the
mm.
fashion community is really trying. Well, some
Yes.
not high fashion houses.
Yeah. Not high fashion houses.
No, but
Definitely not.
no, definitely not. But we're starting to get there. You know,
Mm,
if there are fashion campaigns now that don't have a plus size woman, and meanwhile they think a size 8 is a plus size woman, but
yes.
fine, like,
Yeah.
but at least, but we're getting there. We're getting there. But if I see a fashion campaign that doesn't have a plus size woman, I'm not okay. And I will say something on my
Mm,
Instagram, or, I won't shop there. I
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
this is 2021. You better have you better have diversity in your fashion campaign, and that includes body size and skin color.
Yeah.
You better,
Yeah.
or else I'm not shopping there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right.
I think that's really important, Joanna, is to also shop your values, to
Yes.
support, and I think that's also an awareness of what we accept in ourselves, right? So this is the point I come to, is like when I became really okay with not accepting comments and having discussions like that around my choice of not having children, then I was like, you know what? It was happening less and less, and I could give myself permission to say, I don't think I'm going to have this conversation now, and
Yep.
walk away. That's
Yep.
okay. You can have yours. But it stands to reason that you are making a stand for yourself and for your community by saying, I am going to support brands that are diverse,
Yes, of
that
course.
are inclusive of my values, and that I really want to be part of. And ladies, I really want to say that we are the power, because
I
we are
was
the
just going to say that.
consumer.
Yes.
We are the
Uh,
consumer.
you know what? We've always actually had the power because we're the ones with the wallets, but now more than ever because of social media. The tides have changed, my friends, and because of social media,
Yes,
brands are listening more and more and more to their customers. And so we have to fight for diversity and equality. We have to continue the conversation by
yes,
getting fat people in every single campaign, by getting BIPOC people in every single campaign. We
yes.
must, but they're listening to us more and more.
They are. They are. And it's time.
Yes.
It's time. Oh, Joanna, this has been amazing. I feel like I've learned such a lot as well. And I come away feeling inspired. No, because
Oh.
I process in talking, and I think these conversations are so important. We need ladies to have these conversations,
Yeah,
because
we have to.
they're what helps us understand each other so much better, right? It is just so powerful. So if you're new to the channel, please follow Tracy Gold Show. We would love to have you. We have amazing guests like Joanna, Tuesdays to Fridays, 1 p.m. EDT time, on all things lifestyle for women over 40, 50, 60, and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Joanna. You've been an absolute joy to have. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to comment. Also, if you really want to get the inside scoop on stuff, which is amazing, then you want to go to tracygoldshow.com and sign up to the insiders list, because that's where you're going to get all the replays and discount codes for a whole bunch of fun things. We have Girlfriend Shopping Hour tomorrow, so don't miss it.
Love it.
Thanks so much, Joanna.
Thanks for
You'll be
having
a
me. Bye,
star.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.